myself a cup and pour me another. Just trying to wake up, always in a hurry to get nowhere. It's been the same damn thing for the last 20 years. The same jeans, the same shirt, the same boots, the same dirt, the same job, the same pay, the same shit, different day, alright. Now I eat my lunch when the noon whistle blows, and 4:30 comes, and everybody goes back to their homes and to their families and friends, and then they'll wake up tomorrow and do the same thing again. The same jeans, the same shirt, the same boots, the same dirt, the same job, the same pay, the same shift, different day. And when the weekend comes, I will mow the same lawn, pick up the same guitar and sing the same old songs. I go to the same church, cook on the same grill, go back to the same job to pay the same bills. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll answer to the same boss and drive the same car and meet the same old friends at the same local bar. I'll drink the same beer and eat the same pretzels too, and hear the same people saying I'm just paying my dues. The same jeans, the same shirt, the same boots, yeah, the same dirt, same job, the same.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Three Chords in the Truth with Pete Kramer and Alex Nobles. This is show number 1, coming to you live from Buffalo, New York, more specifically Lancaster, New York, and Depew. This is our first show of a series we hope to really take off here to cover local musicians and how they're faring with, say, COVID-19, but really talk to them and really get into the deep roots of their music life and their careers and what else goes on there in their life. Pete, kind of give us an idea of what your hopes are for this show and what your idea was
behind it. A lot of what you
it.
just said, and of course, first show doesn't come without difficulty, as we've been experiencing, which is why we're about 10 minutes late. But no, it's just... There's been so many people that I've seen specifically on Facebook, that musician friends of mine that I know that they've not been able to do anything, and I've seen some people do some really cool stuff to try to occupy the quarantine time and whatnot. And you know, I mean, you've done things, Alex. I've done things. I actually did a thing for kids because kids were just, they didn't know what was going on, and I would just go on Facebook Live, play some. Wheels on the bus go round and round kind of stuff. So, you know, I just thought, you know, why not try something and let's have our fellow musicians come out. And that's why I kind of thought that the first guest, he's got a great story to tell. A lot of people know Dave, but they don't know the backstory. And I thought, yeah, let's have Dave on. And with that, why don't we bring Dave Bieniek in?
All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce Dave Bieniek, a local music legend. If you haven't heard of him before, well, you're about to really dive into some cool stuff. So, Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, all right. And you did mention legend, but you forgot the rest of it. Legend in his own mind. That's a well, hey, thanks, guys. This is really cool, and it's yeah, a couple of good. If we get to the outer atmosphere, we'll be okay. But thank you.
No, but
hey, the pleasure is ours. We're really glad to have you here.
Dave, with all due respect, especially because you got the best sounding microphone right now. Go back to the very beginning. What got you into music? When, did you join your first band? Tell us the story.
Well, the story of the rock star. Uh, what I remember as a kid, the first thing that got me was that Roger's sparkly drum set, and I just thought, and like that. So the first drums and played in a little play we had, but drums was my first instrument. We couldn't afford to buy any, so I never really did get any drums. And and and, and eventually, in school after drums and not successful getting drums, so eventually I was able to get a trumpet. So played trumpet in grammar school, junior high, and then I probably saw the Beatles and Elvis on TV. But the guy who really got me was Johnny Rivers. I just thought that was so cool. I had to have a Gibson ES335. The interesting thing is, it was in black and white. I didn't know it was red. So my ES335 that I eventually got was sunburst. I didn't know any better. Johnny Rivers is red. Well, mine was sunburst, but it was an ES335. So that's kind of what really, we all saw all those things on the Ed Sullivan Show or Dick Clark and all those great artists that kind of got us going. And the music back then, I mean, we all know, and maybe it's because we're not all of us, Alex. Some of us are older than others. Remember some of the music, and we will think about how great it was. Hear people talk about, well, we don't have great music anymore. We really do. You may have to look around a little bit. There's more of it. There's more to sift through, more things to go through to find what you like. But there is some good stuff out there. But again, playing trumpet in the school band in Cheektowaga. For all you folks that don't know where Cheektowaga is, maybe listening out here in Texas or who knows where, Cheektowaga is just north of Lackawanna and south of Tonawanda. Just to kind of put it in perspective, just so you know. But yeah, school. We again, pick up a guitar and started to play. It was high school, and that's what you did. I mean, we just had a ball doing that, and that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Well, we had a ball, and of course, we had people growing up, on just about every street near us that played music, and I'm still in contact with some of those folks to this day. There's a fellow in Birmingham, Alabama, that I grew up with 2 streets away, Larry Cutlake. Fantastic drummer, singer. He still plays in Birmingham. Mostly sings, plays guitar. I think he's not doing too much on drums anymore, and he was fabulous. But we had.
What was your first band?
You guys. Well, we probably first band called initially Village Court, the Village Court, and that is and was the bass player whose dad was the mayor of Sloan. I'm sorry, not mayor. He was the judge of Sloan. So we found that name, the Village Court, because the guy's father was the judge. Judge Gabrishak was his name. Gabby, short. He was a friend of my dad's. So we called the group the Village Court. Eventually played. There are a lot of folks out there who don't know what I'm talking about, but St. Andrews CYO dances and places around the area in Western New York. Eventually settled in. We were kind of a house band in a place called Mr. Lang's, Main and Fillmore in Buffalo, New York. Main and Fillmore was Mr. Lang's. Eventually, they changed the name to the Bubble Machine, and I got to turn on this bubble machine every night and blow bubbles on everybody and get soap all over my guitar. After that, they changed the name again. They changed it to Dirty
That's
Dick's
the one I was
Bad.
waiting for.
bathhouse. I mean, hey, if you bring in a toilet seat, you got a free drink. Anything about cleaning it? But it was we played there for a couple years, almost every night. It was interesting. Our bass player at the time, and I don't know if I should mention any names. He won't get in trouble now, I guess. His name is Victor Marwin. Awesome player, singer. But he was probably 16, 17, and they actually had him at the door checking proof because they didn't know any better. So we played down in Dirty Dick's Bathhouse for quite a while. Eventually it became the Trafalmador Cafe down there in Main and Fillmore. So that was it was interesting times. It was early 70s. It was interesting to say the least. A lot of things happening, and the band. We initially started out playing things that a lot of bands. I mean, who knows? Rolling Stones, Beatles. We actually played a lot of soul music. Our drummer loved soul music, everything from James Brown to Eddie Floyd, Sam and Dave. We did a lot of that stuff, but eventually we morphed as music changed. We started playing again more Beatles, Rolling Stone stuff. Eventually it started changing again. Three Dog Night was got really big. We started playing a lot of Three Dog Night. Interesting point with Three Dog Night is in Buffalo, and you'll know him as Corey Wells, but his real name is Emil Lewandowski. He's passed away in Dunkirk a few years ago now. But he used to hang out at my dad's restaurant, him and his wife. But Three Dog Night, I mean, we started doing that, and then Santana, groups like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Uriah Heep. We started doing all kinds of stuff like that. And actually, we had quite a mix. Everything from Uriah Heep, the Black Sabbath, to Neil on the bass player in the Buffalo area that was from Rochester, and we said, hey, let's put something together. And we never for a couple guys singing for looking like guys, and it was a fellow by the name of Jim Summers and Bill Shaver. So eventually, we had to find the drummer we eventually found was Mike. And for those folks that don't really understand where the name came from, it is an old English name. That's probably where I got it from. But who killed Cock Robin? I said this fair with my bow and arrow, and it's a whole long thing. It was going, and that band was pretty successful in Buffalo.
Still around. Not the same format, but yeah.
Which is really good, and it's one of the best.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to chime in here. I have a couple of things, Dave. I love how you touched on how that will say, oh, the music today is terrible. It's never going to be like back in the day. You made a really great point. You just got to look. And I guess I will be honest, I was kind of one of those snobs where I grew up, listening to my dad's classic rock, my uncle's bands and stuff like that. And when I really stand out there, and really it just comes down to rock and roll is just not the popular stuff today. It doesn't mean that there aren't great rock and roll bands that are out there. The other point you made was about just the roots of where we get our music from, and how cool is it when you grow up listening to, say, certain bands, or you see someone on TV. I love how you said, I saw, I forget who you mentioned, the guitar. You said it was a black and white guitar, and you happened to get a red one. I just think that is such a neat story, and how that happened. Yes, thank you. I grew up listening to, say, Oldies 104 and a lot of doo-wop stuff. And then it is really cool. You were going through just the different genres of music and how it started to get heavier. And I think that kind of changes as we grow older and our tastes kind of change, but we never lose touch with kind of our roots and music that we loved.
That's right. I mean, and we always will. And that goes have Rolling Stones and the Beatles and the Who and all these Santana and these bands that we had when we were young, but they'll have the people that they love and respect. And you know, the interesting thing is, I met a fellow the other day that runs a little place here that I played, and he was relatively young, and he loves all those old bands too. He was telling, you know, he was naming off songs by the Beatles and Stones and Crosby, Stills and Nash and all that kind of stuff. But again, you can't close that's out there. I'll religiously watch a program on Saturday mornings on CBS just to catch the music at the end of the show. It'll have something. Sometimes it's not brand new. Sometimes it is up for a Grammy this weekend called the Black Pumas. Awesome, but they have this touch back. The reason I like them so much, they touch on old soul with a fresh face to it, and they are just awesome. Recommend them highly. But there are many bands like that, and you do have to sift through, and it's not as easy to just turn on WKBW and get all the biggest hits at the time. They sift through the stuff that's out there to find not necessarily something that's good, but something you like to add to your music.
Absolutely. You had mentioned one of the bands up for a Grammy this weekend, and looking for newer music to listen to. A band that came across my desktop a couple of years ago was a band called, and my friends will know me, kind of roll their eyes at this, but Greta Van Fleet came out. That's finally a band that sounds like the old stuff. I had to sit back though. Again, do we need a band that sounds like the old stuff? But they really kind of hit that mark. So that's really cool. The other thing I was going to mention too is how cool is it when you listen to some old bands and find some, say, B-sides that you never heard of before, and oh my god.
No, and that happens, a lot. They had so many, records that were not on albums, and not only that they had a hit on the A side, there was a B side that was also very good. A little bit different the way the music industry was back then. But yeah, I mean, there is stuff out there that, whether it be Greta Van Fleet that has a tie into this old stuff or something new, something new. Dawes is another great band that actually been around for a whole long time now. That's very, very good, making music that we maybe just aren't familiar with. I've been a big fan of a group called the Avett Brothers now. They're not new. They've been around probably close to 20 years now, but great, great music. And it's out there. I guess that's the bottom line, is it's out there. And if you think everything is something that you're not going to like, and so you don't listen to anything but your old vinyl, you may be missing something.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, a couple of times there. It sounded like you had a couple questions there.
I was watching live from Daryl's house I think it was a couple of years ago right now. And he was saying that, with regard to up and coming people trying to make it in music, because you don't have the record companies, because you don't have the backing of the radio stations and whatnot, what would, Daryl's advice be? And he's like, go out and play as many gigs as you can and build a tribe. I'm just wondering if you agree with that, because he says that the internet is better than what it was when he was coming up. And I guess that's true in a way, but it's not like radio, like you said before, WKBW. You look forward to the next song from the Stones or whoever was coming up next.
Yeah. And I don't know that he's certainly not wrong. He's got a lot of experience. I would say play, period, not necessarily gigs, but play on the internet, put your music out there, play gigs, get your name, get your music out there. That is the whole key. Whether it be live or from your studio, whatever it happens to be, get out there. I mean, get it out there, and the more people that are exposed to it, the better
Right.
for you and for them.
Okay, Cock Robin, and then what happened?
What? Well, Cock Robin, actually, interestingly enough, Cock Robin, in 1977, I think it was, and maybe just before that, we went and recorded an album, mostly in Nashville, and we weren't real happy with it. The music industry had a habit of changing what what you had, or trying to make you something into what you were not. So we weren't real happy with that. But the producer that did the album was a fellow by the name of Chip Hawkes, and he was
Oh yeah.
Silence is Golden,
Yeah.
Here Comes My Baby. So he produced that album, which we never released. And then at some point, he had asked our drummer, Mike Piccolo, and myself to join him in his, he's from England, of course, so he was coming here, he had a record out, and he wanted some players. And so he asked if we would do that with him, move to Nashville and play with him. So we did it. We left Cock Robin to do that. It was something that was just, it sounded like something we should do, and get out there and try to play. Nothing ever happened with that, actually. Became good friends with Chip and got a lot of musical advice from him. But we played a couple of gigs, probably mostly in Buffalo. We came back the year I got married and played some gigs, even at the Barrelhead. But nothing ever really came of that. So I played out on the road quite a bit out in Nashville, whether it be the first job I had on, not real envisioned. I thought, I'm going to stay warm. Leaving Buffalo after the blizzard of '77, I'm going to stay warm. Where do I end up? Sheboygan, Michigan. I did that for a while. Played with some other folks. Most notably, it was a fellow by the name of Panama Red. And that was just really neat. Then I played in a heavy rock band after that called Lynx. The band was booked out of Atlanta, but we all lived in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then I kind of figured, well, I'm doing this on the road. I'm working for peanuts, eating bologna sandwiches, and what am I doing? I doing things that maybe were more close to home, meaning Buffalo. Moved back up there and started doing some things again with music again. For a short, Bill Shaver, we started a band called Dear Daddy that was all original stuff. Ned Wood was in the band as well, if you remember. Yep. Ned. Maybe he rest in peace, and Bill Shaver, actually. There's the drummer and myself only left from that band. But the band Dear Daddy, and we talked a little bit before the show started about our appearance at Buffalo Memorial Auditorium.
Yes.
We had opened up for the Kinks there, and it was amazing in that we could do that. I mean, to play there, open up for the Kinks. And it was an interesting situation because the Kinks were pretty big. Their management group wouldn't even let us get close to those guys. We were in our green room and couldn't even get near them. But we did several other gigs that were pretty cool with people that were cool. The late Eddie Money, we opened a show for him. Rick Danko of the band. We did some things like that were pretty good. Now again, everybody has to survive. So there were members in the band that wanted to get away from playing all original stuff because they needed to make some money. So the band eventually folded. Some other things happened. We formed a band called Dear Daddy that just had a reunion concert in North Tonawanda in Gateway Harbor last summer. Did some recording with that group, some original stuff as well, but we also did some cover stuff. It was actually a great band. Dan Nowak, Bill Wallum, and Doug Fisher were the other members in that band. Eventually, got a ring from Jim Summer that I worked with in Cock Robin, and said he was putting something together with people like Denny Dunkowski, who was in Weekend, and some other folks, and we put together a group called X Dreams, and that was a lot of fun. but those were interesting times, and they were a lot of fun. But again, it all comes down to what do you do for a living? So, so eventually, I took a job and had to leave the band and moved to Florida, then eventually Philadelphia, and worked with a company called Nielsen Media Research for about 20 years, and hardly even touched an instrument until probably around 2013. So it was an interesting hiatus. And it's not so much true like a bicycle where you get back on and it's like you never left. But it's been fun, kind of coming back, if you will. Some old guys play golf,
See, now
some play
that's the
guitar.
thing that I find amazing because of all the stuff that you had done prior to Extremes, that you just stopped for all those years. And when you told me
Yeah,
that you would
yeah.
stop, I never knew that. I never had
Yeah,
any
it was
inkling.
interesting. Well, and it was, I don't know if I had anticipated that I would stop playing completely, but the job just consumed me as that does with a lot of people, and there was no real time to dedicate to other people, to a band, to doing that kind of thing. So eventually, when I started up again, I was free to do that again, and it was something I loved. So we just gravitate to the things we love, to the things and the people we love. So here I am doing it again. Who would have thunk it? Back when in my 20s, playing with Cock Robin, that I'm going to be my age. Playing rock and roll music.
Age is a number, man.
Still,
Age
but
is only
hey,
a number.
That's exactly. You're only as old as you feel. Some mornings I feel kind of older, but there's musicians out there a heck of a lot older than I am. But it's a fun thing, and we enjoy it, and we just do it. We do it because we love it.
Dave, I'd like to touch on a couple things you mentioned a while back. Just when you started talking about playing at the Odd, I just can't imagine what that had to have felt like. I love watching old video footage of concerts from those days where even the lights are different. Colored lights as opposed to, say, the LED colored lights of today. They just don't match, or they just can't compare. But can you kind of describe to the people that are listening here today just what the music scene in Buffalo was like, say, in the 70s and 80s, compared to, say, what it is now? And I feel like that it's starting to pick up, say, in the last couple of years. But talking to some cats from playing in the 70s and 80s, what I've always been told is that the music scene is not what it used to be. You used to be able to go to every bar and there was always live music and stuff like that. So what was it like when you guys were playing, saying Cock Robin and your band, you mentioned Extremes?
I would say that the biggest thing is it's not so much that the bands are different. There's a lot of great music out there. And of course, I've been removed from the Buffalo area for a long time, but you kind of see it everywhere, is that it was more of an event back then. I mean, we would play, we'd have a following. We could play we did this probably for a year. There was a period where we played for a year. I think we played every single night of the week for that year. And we would have people, and sometimes the same people, coming out almost every night. It's a little bit different now, whether it be, the legality of driving while you've had a couple of cocktails or what have you. You don't get that kind of response, and you'll still have people come out to see music, and there's still places that do that, but it doesn't seem like the event kind of status that it was back then. And I don't want to say it was more of a concert kind of feel, but in a way it was. You put on a show. There's places, Alex, you've probably certainly never been to, maybe you've not even heard of, He and She's and After Dark and the Poorhouse, and probably you've heard of the Barrelhead, but you'd go there and you'd do these shows, and the place would be mobbed and packed, and it would be like that almost every night. It was rarely that you would have a night that wasn't busy. Certainly we had those, and maybe starting out more so. But it just seems like you don't see that quite as much as you did, and people's habits change, and just again going out to have a good time. Maybe it looks different, these days, this year. is way different. But I think the way I've seen it, it's just evolved from something that was more event kind of feel to it.
And the funny thing too is that back then it was $1 to get in, it was 50-cent drafts, the place was packed, and everybody had a good time. And apparently they had enough money that they made that they were able to pay the bands. And all those places that you mentioned, He and She's, the Barrelhead, Bowwinkles, they were all jammed all the time.
Pretty much. I mean, there certainly might have been some off nights, but for the most part, I just felt like people were going out and doing more of that kind of thing. Maybe they weren't as socially responsible. Maybe that was part of it. I'm not sure. But it just was something that happened, and we tried to provide a show that was very interesting to everyone back then. And again, now if you go to see music, you can see live original music, and you see a lot of cover music, and you'll see bands that are playing the same music that we played back in the 70s. And we, classic rock. We didn't call it classic rock back then. It was what was on the radio. And for us to get something that was interesting, we would we would religiously listen to stations like Chum out of Toronto, because we wanted to catch something that was new and fresh and things that people hadn't heard before. We would get known for playing songs people never heard them before. They get to Buffalo yet.
They probably thought you wrote it.
Some did, yeah. Absolutely true. There were some things, for the longest time, I think people thought we did this song by a group called Head East called Never Been Any Reason. I think they kind of thought it was ours. But there were a lot of things like that. It just was, and there maybe there still is a culture of that going on somewhere that I'm not aware of, but I don't know, maybe not to that degree. But there I've been to where Cockrum was playing, and it was a full house there. I've been to the Sportsman's Tavern, which is and it was I've been in there where it was just body to body standing so tight you couldn't move. You see a band called the Informers on a night when they were almost just playing on the floor with the old stage and things like that, and that was still happening. But I don't think it was it happens to the extent as that kind of thing.
Well, you just mentioned the Sportsman's.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. A couple things you mentioned kind of ring true in my current time, just being in a band, looking at the music scene. And it almost is you can play at this bar where you might draw maybe 20 to 30 people, and you'll maybe get $300 for 5 guys in your band. Or you can go to the extreme and play at places like the Cove or the Stage and those places where you'll draw probably 50 plus people and get a decent. But I think the one thing that Buffalo is lacking is kind of that intermediate, because like I said before, you can play at the small bar, but to get to the bigger places, you need the agent, right? You need to get the guy that's going to sell your band and be able to get in there. And in Buffalo right now, as far as agents go, there's maybe 2, 3 that control the big places that you can play at. And if you don't get with those guys, you're unfortunately not playing with those. So, and every now and then you'll get a break. Thankfully, we were able to a venue.
And I don't think that's all that different, because back in the day, we had to, be a part of Great Lakes booking. Okay. And they almost had the circuit tied, to be a part of their group. But there are certainly bands that were fighting to get into those places like they do these days. So, whether or not it's to that extent as it was then, if it's the same, that I couldn't tell you. But I know that it's always a struggle to get gigs for any musician, and
Sure.
part of it is just to get name recognition, and then that's a big thing for me here in Texas. I'll play a few places, and once I've done that a couple times, I'll be back and people will enjoy it. But it's hard to get your foot in the door, as it always has been, and I'm sure it has still that way in Buffalo for a lot of groups. But you got to get your name out there, get your foot in the door, and to get that those places that you want to get to. Right now, I mean, people don't know if they've not actually heard me play in some place. They're they're not necessarily pounding to get me into some of those places. And it's, so in a sense, it's the same kind of thing. You're always trying to get in that place that you want to be, and whether it be big or small, sometimes it's equally as tough.
Well, you had mentioned earlier eating bologna sandwiches and things like that, and I guess that's what you have to do in order to start eating the the roast beef, and then eventually get into the steak dinner, right?
And that's it. And the big thing back, for me at the time, it wasn't so bad that I wasn't willing to sacrifice to do that, but I would want to sacrifice for my dream, not for someone else's dream. And I played with great people out there, but it was their dream that I was participating in, not mine. And so if I'm going to be eating, broth and bologna sandwiches or making very meager wages, I want to do it for what I believe in.
Sure.
And I think that's the whole key. And and even nowadays, you don't, for the most part, really don't necessarily do it for the money. We're doing it for the love of it and for our dream. I think that's a big key.
That's a great point. That's a really, really great point. And a lot of us will talk and we'll play a gig for free if it means just getting out there and playing and be able to enjoy it. And you think about the people that come to see your shows, that's ultimately the big payoff, I think, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about, is for people to enjoy what you're doing out there. It's not how many dollars you put in the pocket. And certainly, and I'm fortunate enough to be at a point in my life where I don't have to rely on that to live. The people that are, and so it's a lot different. But even if even at that point, you're doing it because you love to do it. Certainly, in the things we've been through, we're not doing it because we love to be eating bologna sandwiches and love to be packing all that gear up and doing that stuff all the time. We're doing it because for the love of it, and the people enjoy it.
Yeah, and with that being said, we mentioned a whole bunch of places that you mentioned that you'd played before, and that's why I went off camera for a minute to make sure, because we've had a couple of obvious technical difficulties this evening, and I wanted to see if we could still pull this off, and I was told yes. So with your kind indulgence, we have a video of Dave playing at the Sportsman, doing a song by Guster, I believe, called Satellite. That's it.
Yeah, there's an example of music that we're not that familiar with, but has great stuff out there. And I think this is what you're going to do, is probably something I did solo. Mm-hmm.
Something by a band called Guster.
It's coming through just a little choppy.
I don't know what's going wrong tonight. Apparently, I think that must be something with the internet, because something is just clearly, we've got gremlins, and would you be kind enough to rejoin us at some point at a future show when we finally get these gremlins? Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I've been looking forward to this night, speaking with you, and
If I might interject, our vocals are coming in nice and clear. It was just the music from the video that was a little choppy. So I just went back and played back the YouTube a little bit, and it was coming in pretty clear.
Gotcha. And that being said, there's, some of that stuff, if people do have the desire to hear any of that, my Facebook page or my YouTube page has a lot of that stuff on there. It's certainly available. If you feel like getting bored, just go there and watch some of that stuff. But you can certainly do it. Oh, and by the way, we're talking about all this old time music, and I don't know if this is really a pitch or not, but a guy I know in the Buffalo area, Rick Falkowski, put out a book a couple of years ago now. It's a history of Buffalo music and entertainment, which it documents music going way back into the early part of the century and goes pretty much through the 80s. And this is really a good read, and there's a lot of history in here with people in the area. Again, it's history of Buffalo music and entertainment. It's really a kind of a cool thing to, if you have any interest in that thing at all, anyone that's listening to this podcast, it's something up and going through there. It's just it's a treasure chest of information of music from the Buffalo area.
Very cool. I've heard Rick's name before, and I wasn't sure where I heard it from, but now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, good stuff.
Dave, if you wouldn't mind, I just had one more question to kind of get your thoughts, and really kind of goes in line with, say, aspiring musicians. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. Just you had mentioned, listen, you got to get your foot in the door and things like that. But what could you say to, say, aspiring musicians that are forming bands or that are bands that kind of are hitting roadblocks, or maybe people are saying, you aren't playing the right music. And the other thing I kind of wanted to add to that, certainly with your experience and just your time being in so many different bands, band dynamics, what could you comment on when it comes to just being with other people and dealing with different personalities, and how to overcome maybe the quote unquote ego player, if you will? Because I hear from a lot of people, sometimes the hardest thing to overcome, you're trying to get your band out there and get your name, but the biggest issue you try to overcome is really just trying to get it along.
Yeah, and that is tough, and really the nature, the chemistry. Someone asked me once, "What's the most important part of a band? Is it the vocals? Is it the guitar player? Is it It's the chemistry." And even the best chemistry eventually has to, could fall apart. We saw it happen to great bands. But the chemistry you have is, and I believe is the real key to, you have to be good, but you need this chemistry. You need luck. And again, with all that being said, the other thing is, don't give up. Just keep doing it. Keep playing. And as I said before, play the gigs. Put your stuff online, get your name out there, but you need this cohesive and the good chemistry between people to make this happen, and that comes across. It comes across on stage in your music. That is key, and it's hard to find those right people. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. You'll find people that gravitate to their own, personality, and they'll get hired guns to back them up. But there's nothing like a band that has the chemistry, and there may be players in that band that maybe take the lead sometimes, but it takes that whole group interacting together to really put out that product. And it's probably like any product. You need everything functioning well at the same time to be successful. But yeah, just keep. People, it's what you deal with, but you just have to find people that that get along and have fun. And I played with a lot of people that were great, and the majority of people that I played that were great to play with, and just had so much fun. But you were certainly off times, but you get over that, and if you have people that are in the group that certainly aren't focused on that same thing or are problems, eventually they get weeded out, I suppose, whether through their own desire,
Sure.
or the band's. If it's not working, it's not working. You get someone that will, but it's that can be challenging. But you have to just keep doing it. Just keep doing it, and it might get tiring sometimes. But if you love it, you're going to just keep keep pounding away and have fun with it. And that's the key. Have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, then you might as well just not be doing it.
Oh, and people out in the audience, they can tell if the
Yeah.
band has great chemistry, if they're getting along on stage, if they're smiling at each other. And, I think they can tell a fake smile or the guy that wants to get the attention on stage. And I've always been a firm believer. You may not be the best sounding band, but if you have great chemistry and you're having fun up on stage, that can be just as powerful as, say, the best sounding band that's out there. I've always thought music, when you go to see live music, you have two parts. It's the audible, what you're hearing, and it's what you're seeing as well. So you touched
Absolutely
on some
the
great
visual.
points there.
Oh, absolutely the visual. I mean, so much you're in your mind, and the people that are out there watching this, so much is filled in with that visual. And if you have people just kind of standing there, what they call them, shoegazers, which could be okay. Something to show, something for people to enjoy. Maybe, and maybe that's a part of the music where, that you just stand there and play, and there could be that could be something that's successful for you. But I think overall, I think you need some kind of visual, you need some kind of interaction. And that's true with any kind of entertainment. Music is entertainment. So you have to, there's a lot of sides to it. And like you said, Alex, it's the audio and it's the visual.
Amen.
Well, that being said, let's make this the last word
Good
for
stuff.
the evening. And again, Dave, I'm so very sorry that we had these technical problems because we kept getting all these garbled things. And, I don't understand that. We owe you one, man.
Not a problem. It's fun. Fun. No matter how you look at it, I just feel like I'm in the shuttle.
But I love your studio. Your studio looks so cool back there with all those great.
It is
What's
very
your favorite
cool.
guitar?
I'm jealous.
My favorite guitar is the one
Okay,
that has
there
the
you
6 strings on it. And you guys know this, and we talked about it. Your favorite. Tomorrow, you may have a new favorite. It's whatever you pick up and are enjoying at the time. And again, whether it be an acoustic, right now I favor for live, my Takamine, and then electric guitar. I've just kind of gotten real comfortable with a Telecaster now, which was kind of very different for me from many years. But it's all part of the fun. And any of you guys that play music and have the same sickness I do, it's called GAS, GAS. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
It's called GAS,
Yes.
Guitar Acquisition Syndrome.
That's right.
And it's there's a support group for this called Alex and Pete.
That's right.
So yeah, but thank you guys. This has been really
No,
awesome,
thank
and
you
I do
so
appreciate
much,
it.
man.
The pleasure is ours, Dave.
Like
Thank
always.
you for being on the show.
And thanks for all those people that might have tuned in. I hope that they're enjoying some of this banter, and and don't mind listening to some old fart make some comments.
You said old fart and gas.
But if they're enjoying it, that's what counts.
No, that's
You guys are just
I
kids.
told you, man. I'm not that far behind you. You just have better hair.
But
No, thank you.
but thank
Thanks.
you.
And,
Do
next
appreciate it.
week, we've got Mike Laban and Vicky DeVoe from Red Rain, and hopefully we'll have all these gremlins worked out of things. And thanks for everybody for tuning in. Alex, my friend, always good to see you, sir. And thank you, Dave, in Texas. All right, we're out.
Thank
Good
you
night.
much, guys.